Number 10. Portia De Rossi. In her 2010 groundbreaking memoir Unbearable Lightness, Portia De Rossi reveals the pain and illness that haunted her for decades, from a time she was a 12-year-old girl working as a model in Australia through her early rise to fame as a cast member of the hit television show Ally McBeal. She also detailed her struggles with and while living in the public eye, and recounted how she survived on 300 calories a day and took 20 laxatives daily, trying to maintain a weight of 82 pounds. According to her memoir, Portia both starved herself and putting her life in danger and concealing from herself and everyone around her the seriousness of her illness, and described the elaborate rituals around food that came to dominate hours of every day. The actress did this all while terrified that the truth of her sexuality would be exposed in the tabloids, and revealed the heartache and fear that comes from living a life in the closet, which was only magnified by her unrelenting desire to be thinner, more in control of her body, and the number of calories she consumed and spent. But it wasn't all bad. Portia also recounted how falling in love with Ellen DeGeneres helped her develop a healthy body image, embrace her sexual orientation, and gain inner peace. Number 9. Janice Dickinson. A strange encounter with Bill Cosby in 1982 was described in the 2002 memoir No Lifeguard on Duty by the self-anointed world's first supermodel Janice Dickinson. In her book, she reveals real moments that she experienced with Cosby and goes into great detail when it comes to taking back the narrative. Janice mentioned how Cosby allegedly answered his hotel room door in nothing but a towel and kissed her. He then took her to dinner and suggested that she follow him back upstairs. The memoir was pretty explosive at the time and would come back into relevance in 2018 when she chose to testify in court to Cosby's crimes. The comedian was once known to millions as America's Dad, famous for his clean brand of family comedy and his award-winning work with children's programming. So Janice's memoir really did help expose Cosby's double life, as eventually more than 50 women came out claiming that the star slipped them illicit substances and took advantage of them while they were unconscious. And in April of 2018, an 80-year-old Cosby was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison, although he would eventually be released in 2021. Number 8. Corey Feldman. In his deeply personal 2013 memoir, child star and teen heartthrob Corey Feldman exposes the darkness that loomed behind his rise to fame. Although he undoubtedly had a successful career, famous friendships, and high-profile relationships, Corey reveals a side to his star-studded life that no one knew about, and it's full of tragedy. He came from a broken family that he emancipated himself from at the age of 15. As a teenager, he suffered physical, emotional, and sexual violence. The Stand By Me star was also arrested and struggled with addiction throughout his time as a successful working actor. But most shockingly, Corey also implied that his close friend Corey Haim's lifelong battle with addiction was the result of being preyed upon by a powerful older man. Following the book's publication came rampant speculations about the identity of the offender, and it's something that readers still argue about to this day. His memoir, Choreography, weaves a heartbreaking story of pain and survival that reveals just how dark the industry can really be. Number 7. Holly Madison. Former Playboy bunny and Girls Next Door star Holly Madison dished on how oppressive life with Hugh Hefner really was in 2015's Down the Rabbit Hole. Madison described the many bizarre rules and rituals that Hefner imposed upon his girlfriends. For instance, that they needed to wear matching flannel pajamas, engage in group dressed in tiny skirts and bralettes, and had a daily curfew of 9 p.m. The memoir tells the story of Madison's time with Hefner from 2001 to 2008 and its aftermath. She goes into great detail about the reality of her life behind the cameras, how her depression in the Playboy mansion reached harrowing depths, yet she felt trapped there. She also opened up about her unwillingness to admit to anyone how sad she really was, and Hefner's emotional control over her. The book also explores her time on the reality show The Girls Next Door and the weirdness that was pop culture in the early 2000s. When speaking about her book, Holly said, quote, "I felt like I had something to say about being in the midst of that whole thing that was going on where Paris Hilton and Jessica Simpson and Kendra was so celebrated. And I was a part of it too, for being dumb on TV. Part of the reason I wanted to write the book was to show the other side of it, which goes to show you just how much of it was all for the cameras." Number 6. Shania Twain. The Grammy-winning country singer confronted her childhood demons when she wrote her 2011 memoir, From This Moment moment on, describing how her stepfather Jerry was physically, sexually, and verbally violent towards her and her mother Sharon. In a frank and often shocking autobiography, the singer reveals graphic and personal details about her rags to riches story and the price of ambition and success. Throughout her memoir, it also became clear that Shania experienced a harrowing degree of poverty and hunger. For instance, she claimed that sometimes there was only bread and mustard for her and her 4 siblings to eat, and they often wore plastic bread bags to cover their shoes to protect their feet during winter, and regularly went to school without lunch. The singer also had to deal with a double betrayal in her life. She wrote about the heartache that she went through when she found out about the affair between her husband of 14 years, Robert Lang, and her best friend. As a result, Shania became so distraught that she literally lost her voice to spasmodic dysphonia, which left her unable to sing. So her memoir explores how she worked through all that heartbreak. Number 5. Sharon Stone. She became a Hollywood icon and a household name after her role in Basic Instinct, and in a 2021 memoir, The Beauty of Living Twice, she finally reveals the vulnerability behind her femme fatale persona. She goes into great detail about her experiences in Hollywood, like how she was tricked into that famous shot in Basic Instinct, and ill-equipped for fame when it finally came to her. She was also routinely taken advantage of in the male-dominated film industry. She claims that the filmmakers were not entirely honest about what they captured with the camera, and so they didn't have her complete consent to put that scene in the film. Quote, "I do think we have to create a think tank that really addresses what is a crime, what is a felony, what is consent." The name of her memoir actually comes from a life-changing brain hemorrhage that she suffered in 2001 that almost killed her. It left her without the basic ability to function, and she ended up losing her family, her career, and a huge part of her life, which she had to start again from the ground up. Stone also talks about how she went through a childhood of and violence to a career in an industry that actually brought back a lot of those memories for her, although in Hollywood it was all hidden under the cover of money and glamour. Number 4. Leah Remini. A former longtime Scientologist, King of Queens star Leah Remini opened up about her experiences in the church in her 2015 memoir Troublemaker. As a teenager in the church's Sea organization, Remini said that she was reprimanded for sunning by the pool at the Scientology-run Sandcastle Hotel in Florida, and as a punishment was taken out to sea on a boat, thrown overboard, and nearly drowned by a group leader. Not only that, but she was also once fined $40,000 after confessing to stealing food from the headquarters 20 years earlier. In her memoir, Leah also made some shocking allegations about several well-known Hollywood celebrities. In fact, she recalled a time that her and her husband, Angelo, spent time at Tom Cruise's Beverly Hills mansion when he invited a group of well-known Scientologists and other celebrities, including the Smiths. She actually called Will and Jada Pinkett Smith famous friends of the church, and even mentioned the Scientology school that they opened, revealing that despite Jada's denial, she is indeed good friends with Tom Cruise and an active member of the controversial religion. Number 3. Jeanette McCurdy. Described as both heartbreaking and hilarious, iCarly star Jeanette McCurdy's bluntly titled memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, gives fans a glimpse into what really went on behind the cameras, something that up until now fans have only been able to speculate about. Jeanette exposes her traumatic experiences on Nickelodeon and the disturbing truth about how she was mistreated by her mother, who pushed her to be a child star, noting that the persona she was known for throughout her youth and her young adult life was a front forced upon her by her mom, who, in addition to everything else, was extremely physically inappropriate with both her and her brother, even when they were teenagers. Jeanette also discusses the perils of young fame and reveals that she developed anorexia as a child, and talks about why she ultimately quit acting altogether. She also details numerous instances where she felt exploited as a teen actor, both on and off set. The actress refers to the person behind the demands as simply the creator throughout the memoir, never naming them. She simply describes them as mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying, calling a time when she was filming an episode of iCarly that he insisted that she wear a bikini instead of a one-piece swimsuit which she preferred. The revelations in her new book are absolutely shocking, and they really expose the traumatic experience of being a child star. Number 2, Christina Crawford. At the height of her fame in the 1940s, Joan Crawford had a considerable reputation to uphold. She won a 1945 Best Actress Academy Award for the lead role in Mildred Pierce. She lived in a beautiful house in Brentwood, LA, and used her wealth to adopt and raise 4 children, including Christina Crawford. For all of this, Joan was celebrated in the public eye and had extensive magazine spreads about her happy family life. But to her daughter, the facade was a complete lie, and eventually her frustration at the discrepancy between her mother's private existence and her public reputation bubbled over. In 1978, she published Mummy Dearest, which told the truth about her mother's character, that she was a sadistic perfectionist. It was the first tell-all celebrity memoir to talk so openly about childhood, and subsequently was a worldwide sensation upon its release. In fact, it stayed at the top of the New York Times bestseller list for 42 weeks, and even resulted in the 1981 film adaptation starring Faye Dunaway that would go on to become a cult hit. To this day, most people associate Joan Crawford with that infamous scene where she launches into a vicious tirade after discovering Christina's dresses were hung up on wire clothes hangers. So it's safe to say that her reputation never recovered. And coming in at number 1, Rose McGowan. In her 2018 memoir Brave, the outspoken actress takes readers behind the scenes of her life in Hollywood, where she has become known as one of the fiercest and realest women fighting to expose the ugly truth about Harvey Weinstein and the systematic misogyny that has defined the industry for so long. The most outspoken of all of Weinstein's accusers, McGowan opens up about when she first met the movie mogul at the Sundance Film Festival, but only refers to him in her book as the monster. She was at the premiere of her 1997 film Going All the Way when he sat behind her. The next day she was sent to his hotel room, where the two talked about films and her acting goals. But as he walked her out, McGowan writes that he pushed her into his bathroom, forcibly backed her into the wall, and ripped off her clothes. But most shockingly, after the incident, the actress was driven to a photo op with her Phantoms co-star Ben Affleck. When she told him what happened, he simply said, "Damn it, I told him to stop doing that." Her memoir couldn't be more relevant to current events, as to date, 84 women have come forward with allegations against Weinstein, and he is currently serving a prison sentence of 23 years.
In at number 10, Paris Hilton's boarding school. In 2020, Paris Hilton opened up about her traumatic childhood after keeping it a secret for most of her life. In her documentary, This Is Paris, Hilton alleged that she'd been subjected to toxic and harmful treatment while attending Provo Canyon School in Utah, which was a boarding school for troubled teens. Hilton revealed that while she was there, she would be isolated in solitary confinement for no reason and be forced to take pills that made her feel numb. Paris and her entire family kept this a secret for her entire time that Paris was a socialite and an A-list star. Along with her difficult childhood, Paris also exposed that her voice was faked, and she made it sound higher to play into the dumb blonde stereotype. And at number 9, Joan Crawford. Back in old Hollywood, they didn't have the beauty products that we have today, and actors were forced to use alternative measures to look their best on camera. Actress Joan Crawford took this to the extreme and admitted to soaking her eyes in boric acid every week to make them, quote, sparkle on camera. She exposed this years later in her autobiography called My Way of Life. When talking about this beauty regimen, Crawford said once a week she'd steam her face, apply a mask, and soak her eyes in boric acid, casually instructing, quote, while the mask is working, place pads soaked in witch hazel and boric acid over your eyelids and put on your favorite music. Obviously, this was an extremely bad idea that could have made her go blind, but she risked it all just to look better. And at number 8, the black box. We are just now scratching the surface of the horrific things that child actors had to endure in the days of old Hollywood. Sadly, one of the punishments adults on set would use when a child actor misbehaved was putting them in a thing called a black box. This was a closed-in box where the actor was forced to sit on an actual block of ice as punishment. Shirley Temple spoke of this box in her autobiography and called it an exploitation of her childish innocence. In her book, she said that if any child on the set of Baby Burlesque misbehaved, they were locked in a windowless sound booth dubbed the punishment box, where they'd be forced to sit on a block of ice. Temple was sent to the box several times in her tenure as a child star. Temple added, quote, far as I can tell, the black box did no lasting damage on my psyche. Its lesson of life, however, was profound and unforgettable. Time is money. Wasted time means wasted money means trouble. And at number 7, Jackie Cooper. Stories like this are so horrible, I truly hope this is still not happening today. Actor Jackie Cooper shared a terrible memory of when he was working on set. While he was filming filming the movie Skippy, Cooper was not able to make himself cry, so the director, who happened to be his uncle, threatened to kill his dog if he didn't cry. Norman Turog, the uncle and director, left lasting trauma on Cooper. In his autobiography, Cooper said about the situation, quote, "I began sobbing so hysterically that it was almost too much for the scene. Turog had to quiet me down by saying perhaps my dog had survived the shot, that if I hurried and calmed down a little and did the scene the way he wanted, we would go see if my dog was still alive." Cooper ended up earning the nomination for Best Actor in a Leading Role for his performance in 1931. He was just 9 years old, and he's still the youngest nominee ever for the award. And at number 6, morality clauses. Back in the day, the studios basically owned the actors that they signed, and they made them sign their life away. Once they became an actor for a major studio, the actor totally belonged to them and was not able to make major life decisions without consulting executives. Many of these clauses forced female actors to stay unmarried so they were more marketable to men. Others even forced women to terminate their pregnancies so they would not waste any time that could be spent filming. The studios claimed that these clauses were to, quote, prevent stars from destroying their value through scandal. Stars like Lana Turner, Judy Garland, and Jeanette MacDonald were all held to these clauses, and they would disguise the hospital visits and claim they were for ear infections or other minor treatments. Halfway number 5, closeted LGBT plus actors. To continue along the lines of morality clauses, another use of those clauses were to closet LGBT plus actors, even forcing some of them into sham marriages just to keep up appearances. This part of the clause revolved around not, quote, forfeiting the respect of the public. If the actor breached this part of the contract and had a relationship that was not approved, they would risk losing their entire salary for the role. Also, if the actor was outed, that would mean the end of their career either way. Gay actor Rock Hudson's struggle with his identity was revealed in the biography All That Heaven Allows. In that book, it was exposed that a magazine planned to out him back in the day. At that time, Hudson's agent was the only person who knew the truth and proposed that he get married to squash the story. Hudson immediately married Phyllis Gates, but they divorced a couple years later. The secret stayed with him until days before he passed away. And at number 4, Buddy Edsen. Back in the days of old Hollywood, the makeup and prosthetics weren't what they are today, and oftentimes the costumes that the actors would wear would be toxic. One fact is that the Wicked Witch's green face in The Wizard of Oz was made with toxic paint. And Buddy Edsen, who was supposed to play the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, did not do so because he had an extreme reaction to the aluminum dust from the makeup. Because of this reaction, he was replaced in the movie with actor Jack Haley. Edsen was ultimately hospitalized and forced out of Oz's production. For years after the movie, Edsen claimed that the makeup caused permanent breathing problems for the rest of his life. And at number 3, Jack Nicholson's sister was his mother. This one isn't really related to Hollywood, more so a secret that a Hollywood actor kept for a number of years. Jack Nicholson kept a huge secret from the public almost his entire life, mostly because he didn't know the truth until he was an adult. His entire life, Jack was raised with a sister named June, who was 17 years older than him. But when his parents died, Jack's older sister revealed that Jack was actually her child, and her parents raised him as their own to hide the stigma from a young pregnancy. And Jack's parents were actually his grandparents the whole time. And at number 2, Rihanna's father had a second life. Rihanna has spoken in the past about her tense relationship with her father. Throughout her life, he was addicted to alcohol and cheated on her mother essentially their whole marriage. But one day, a horrible secret was revealed, and apparently the entire time he was married, Rihanna's father had a second family. He had 3 other children as well, 2 daughters and a son. At one point, Rihanna was even forced to sue her father because he was selling services involving her name and likeness, although she later dropped that suit. And finally, number 1, hidden children. Being a movie star means that you need to be perfect 24/7. That includes hiding pregnancies from the public or trying to make them go away. Celebrities like Kylie Jenner kept her pregnancy totally a secret until after the birth to ensure the media did not affect her. However, there are tons of celebrities who completely hid secret love children from the public. Aerosmith's frontman Steven Tyler had a secret child while in his heyday, so he and the mother decided to hide the paternity from the child. When Liv Tyler was 8, she found out the truth, and so did the media. Apparently, she was forced to put the pieces of the puzzle together herself when she could no longer ignore the resemblance she had to the singer and his other kid.